podcast you're about to listen to is from a book series on post-qualitative, new materialist, and critical post-humanist research. I'm Karen Murris and chief editor of this new Routledge series. You can find it on the following website, www.postqualitativeresearch.com.
Hi, Buhle.
Hi, Dill. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. So nice to see you and see you coming back straight after your trip from overseas, where you've been working on this chapter and then some other work around the grandmothers of the sea.
Yes, it's been such a very lovely and interesting journey to work with the women in the last 5 years, especially going to Scotland to have time really to solely focusing on them. It's just been such a great pleasure.
It's so beautiful. So tell me a little bit about this chapter we've worked on. You have been working with these women as part of the Coastal Justice Network. Tell me a bit about that and about some of the issues they're facing.
So I've been working with women, including many various issues that they're facing along the coastline. These are women who have lived all their lives along the coastline. All they have known all their lives is the ocean. However, there are so many things at the moment taking place around the ocean, things like oil and gas, things like OM. I'll speak about Ocean Economies Master Plan, which took place in the last 2 years. And as people that are very important and are living along the coastline, they have not been included in this important exercise. Not only that, but there's other things such as oil and gas mining, where there is consultation that takes place around EIAs. They also have not been consulted in such a way that they bring in their views. Also, there's this other plan again, which is taking place called MSP, Marine Special Planning. They've also not been consulted, whereas they are the people that are defending the ocean all the way.
So the women are having to contend with all these policies and all these practices that what we've come to learn as the Coastal Justice Network, which are scholar activists working in solidarity with small-scale fishers, with women, these harvesting women, small-scale cooperatives, and people who fall out of that system. We've kind of aligned our research in service of them and trying to help and support them. One of the things that we've discovered is that South Africa, with its history of apartheid and the Group Areas Act, the Anti-Witchcraft Act, the Bantu Education Act, were kind of racist policies that separated people from place, from knowledge, and even from practicing their sacred practices and rituals. So the landscape in which we're working is very difficult, especially for women. And I wanted to ask you a bit more about how the women describe the situation they're in with regards to wage slavery in the seaweed sector.
Yes, so the women in the seaweed sector, they are saying they are free but not free. And when I ask them, what do you mean when you say you are not free? They say theoretically their independence came in 1994 when Nelson Mandela was released in prison. That was just that. But in practice, all the laws, everything still speaks to apartheid because they are still living under apartheid conditions. Currently, they are harvesting seaweed under very, very difficult circumstances and conditions whereby they don't have contracts to harvest seaweed, and they have harvesting this seaweed since 1975 when this company was set up. And some of them, they don't even have social protection. I'll give an example of a woman who broke her leg while she was collecting seaweed, and she had to wait for other people to finish harvesting. That's the only time when she was taken to a village, and was only dumped along the road, and she had to find her way to home and to the hospital, and she spent 2 years without harvesting seaweed. Furthermore, or additionally, the pay which they get from harvesting seaweed, which comes through the middleman, is a very, very low, and it does not meet anything. And each time they're always in debt because when they go to harvest seaweed, they need to eat, and they have to get a loan from this woman who is the middle person. and the conditions are very bad, and they are suffering. They are in very big debt at the moment.
And I know you're working on a separate piece around this in a
Yes.
different paper around this particular issue,
Yes,
which
I
will be
am.
unpacked later. The women are in this chapter. We tell 5 stories, and
Yes.
we ensure that we hear it in their voice. Do you want to tell me a little bit about
Yes.
why in their voice?
This is very interesting. In many times, things get lost through translation or through hearing it from a third party. So knowing them and understanding them, I thought it would make sense and maybe speak more to their voices if they were to speak themselves the way they did it. And that way their stories comes clear, unedited, uninterrupted, and they tell it as it is. Yes, so this is what it's all about. We want to hear their voices. What are they saying and what are they feeling and how are they feeling about what is happening at the moment?
I think this is so important, and I think the reader won't realize that this chapter was primarily written all in Xhosa and only was translated right near the end.
Yes.
So if we had it our way, this whole chapter would be in Xhosa.
Yes, definitely.
As the way the women speak, because what we've learned from decolonial historians like Nomalanga Mkhize, who talks about idiomatic reasoning, and Steve Biko, who talks about describing the personality of the situation, the kind of pre-colonial African scientific method was one in which you didn't try to solve problems, but try to spend as much time with an issue to understand the personality of the issue. And I think that's what's so beautiful in this chapter, is that through the 5 stories, we get a sense of the personality of the situation, of the struggles, and even some of the stuff that is kind of ephemeral or spiritual. The women all speak about talking to the sea and talking back, but recently the sea is not responding. Do you want to unpack that a bit?
Yes, so these women have so much ecological ocean knowledge that they shared with us in this paper. For example, they give an example how they can tell the sea at different times, when it's angry, when it's happy, and when it wants to communicate with them. Each time in a day, it means something to them. This is knowledge which any average person like me and you would not understand, but they get to understand. Not only that, but more about it, where the fish species, where the marine species are, they know where to find what type of fish or what type of marine resources within the ocean. Some things which they believe GIS or anything cannot find it, but only them.
Yes, and they actually challenge some of the scientific results that scientists are saying, who come in, helicopter in, do these quick assessments and leave, whereas these women, these grandmothers of the sea, have lived with the ocean, are seeing it every day. They know what's really there on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, and to make matters worse, they are saying when these people come, they only see big boats, they only see trawlers, which do not speak to them at any time. And they understand why at times the ocean resources are not there, because they know how they behave and how they communicate when they don't want to be seen.
And I think in some of the workshops that you facilitated, I've been witness to some of the struggles that these women are facing, that they've asked for help since 2012, even before that, and still not hearing it back from the government. Do you feel that this paper, this chapter, might have an impact that might also help their voice being heard?
Yes, more so because we are sharing this chapter with the government authorities, with them, and this chapter iterated a lot between us and them, and everything which we have written here is their stories. So I am sure there's going to be a very good response and their stories are going to be heard.
Beautiful. We're almost out of time, but I thought maybe as a closing point, I would just like to add this chapter's contribution to hydrofeminism really is a chapter around, and we were very specific to ensure that the women's voices are told in their way, and that often the perspectives of Black African women, especially Black African grandmothers, are not often included in how we think about the world, how we shape our policies and make decisions. So I know for you and for I, that was a really important point. Do you have any final words you want to share?
Yes, I would love if more researchers and everyone working around the ocean, they could do like what we have done to make sure that the stories of these women are heard, and that would be really an honor to them.
There's grandmothers of the sea all over the planet, so we need to honor them all.
Yes, sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you would like to know more about this chapter, please visit the website www.postqualitativeresearch.com. And please stay tuned for future podcasts.